Hello.
Hello, my daughter. How are
Hello,
you?
my father. I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good. It's a nice sunny Saturday morning.
It's sunny where you are?
It is sunny.
It
A
is
bit breezy, but
pouring.
sunny.
It is pouring rain where I am.
Uh,
It's a false night.
welcome to the bright side.
This is the whole thing why English people always talk about the weather because it's just so unpredictable.
Yeah, yeah. It changes. And your postcode location determine what kind of weather you're having today.
Yeah, because we're not
But at
really
the
that
moment,
far away.
no, weather is fine.
The weather is fine. Well, we're back for I think this should be episode 4 of the podcast, Father Daughter Memory Cafe. For a second, I
That's
forgot the
correct.
name.
Yeah.
Uh, so like we're not as smooth on our recording schedule, and we're releasing them quite sporadically. So we're definitely still in the finding our feet version of this, but I'm really enjoying the process.
Yes, it is a nice journey. I look forward to it.
Me too. Me too. So, do we need to do any more catch ups or check ins? Okay.
Um,
We talked a little
no,
bit before. We shouldn't do that. We should probably chat on the podcast.
well, catching up is one where um I've had a colorful week. I've been to a plant show and looked at machinery, which makes my day. It was a nice drive out into the country, into Derbyshire, and rolling over those hills. It was really, it lifted my soul. It gave me a nice feeling, you know. And I was able to stop and make some phone calls while perched on the top of a hill. And when you speak to me with that kind of view in front of me, I'm able to really um, have clear thought and process. And it was good. I enjoyed that part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually facilitating a bunch of meetings this week about dealing with difficult histories because that's a part of my job. And I was talking about trauma informed practice and the 5 ways to well being. And essentially, all I kept saying to people was when you're dealing with this stuff, you need to make sure that there's like access to beautiful spaces where you take time and you leave and you go for walks. Because this is what all the studies tell you that what part of the 5 ways of well being is um, is exercise, and another one is nature. And then trauma informed practice tells you to create third spaces where you can process information by seeing things. But essentially by the end of this meeting, I just told people like 5 times like go outside, go find some flowers, see nature. Because if we're just sat in computers or in offices reading traumatic histories, we need something that will balance us out in our souls.
Yeah, yeah. I've always thought though, when I used to do sales and you had to draw a selling a kitchen to a man who suddenly bought a hotel out of an urge to own a hotel and try and sell him a kitchen.
Mm.
And that was one of the hardest ones I had to do. And I sat down and looked out to the sea and I could deal with all his negative or query or suspicious um, processes that go through his mind, wondering if I'm trying to rip him off, trying to sell him 30,000 US worth of kitchen equipment, you know. And one of the things that kept coming to my mind was I'd have to sit somewhere where I didn't have a telephone line or a electric cable across the top of my view limiting me.
Mm.
And I think that's what they call blue sky thinking, where you can look
Limitless.
right up.
Limitless.
Yeah, and it helps.
Mm.
It helps you to be able to assimilate information that you've taken in and process it in a quite a timely manner. It was good. It was a good experience. And I had the same kind of feeling this week when driving through those hills. It was nice.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad. Last time I was really like impacted by nature is anytime I'm in the sea because the sea is transformative to me. I don't know if it's because we grew up well, because of you guys moved us to the seaside, but I grew up next to the sea in Black River. So all of my formative memories have the sound of the sea in the background. So when I hear it, my heart clicks into place and I get very still internally. Doesn't happen very often. So the sea, any kind of big body of water, that tends to do it for me. But Australia was the first time where like woodland did it to me. And like being up a mountain where I was like, whoa, this is really cool. And I'm suddenly like lost in my experience with nature.
Yeah, I had a visit to Tennessee, Smoky Mountain National Park, and what got me was at night. It was a full moon night. We're very blessed because we went very remote location on a full moon night, looking over the natural forest,
Mhm.
but the sounds of the crickets,
Mm,
and you hear it in songs about cricket choir, and it was um, it could have been eerie if you didn't embrace nature
mm,
because it sound almost like you have tinnitus, you know. But oh, that was something that was inspiring for me as well, and just seeing the trees and being outside, it helps revitalize the soul. Right?
Did you howl at the moon?
I might have.
Like I was like, there's no way there's a full moon and you're present and you haven't howled. Oh,
Cheers.
cheers. This is a good way to introduce what we're drinking. So, what you drinking, Dad?
This mug says, "What's big and red and everywhere?" That must be me. So this is I'm drinking number 4 coffee, Italian blend. Um, and this is a mug from Speedy Hire. Once again, these plant suppliers on your site, when they come with gifts, and I accept them. Yeah, I hope it's not against the law. I told one once I like Krispy Kreme,
Mhm.
and he brought a dozen.
Very
I did well.
responsive.
Yeah. But yeah, it's the second cup for the morning, and this one will last me for the full time we're talking.
Nice. It's a
What
big
are you
cup too.
drinking?
I am drinking a number 4 as well, Brazilian, I think, blend. Asda again, because that's where I seem to be doing my last minute shopping these days. I'm drinking out of one of my favorite mugs. It's Freudian sips, it says. And then on the back it's a comic and it's Mr. Freud and it says when you say one thing but mean your mother.
Yeah,
Which makes me laugh. I got this
because it's Freudian.
because it's Freudian because and also it's a pun, when you say one thing and
Yeah.
mean your mother. Gotcha.
Mhm.
No, mother. Um, but I got this from this place called Still Point Center in London, and they do like psychological support or like, from like a scientific and therapeutic research branch. And they were doing a project with the National Archives, working with this practitioner called Iqbal Singh, who is really great, does outreach with the National Archives, and they were looking at kind of how to again how to process trauma in the archival record. So dealing with some really difficult histories and how we might learn from psychological practice to support storytelling in a responsible way that helps people to process this information.
This is so 2022 kind of thinking. Um, Back in my day, they just told you and said that's the truth. Yeah.
Oh,
But
and look how many messed up people are of your generation.
it's been processed before disseminated. That is good. Okay, so
Well, yeah, it's one of those. So I don't mean to get into work in this chat, but it's one of the things that I've constantly been doing throughout my career is trying to figure out how to get people who the only information or the majority of information that's held about them in their collective memory of like the state or a larger organization is just painful histories. How to get them engaged with that history in a way that means that it can mean something for them in a positive way and that they can own it rather than their history still being owned by other people. So I don't mean like physically owned, but I mean like actually like what do we do with it, making decisions about the future? How should it be used? Should it be kind of in the public space? Should it be protected? Because we often get these things where people are like, where there is an imagination that either there is no history around repressed people in these public collections, or that that history is being repressed again. So there's like a multiple kind of situation going on of where people are kind of pushed to the margins of society. They're being pushed in the reality, and then the history of that pushing is also then being pushed so that people don't know about it, and then the cycle continues and erasure continues. Um, but we can't just like throw people into that and say like deal with this really difficult history, because that's not that's not kind, because we know what they're about to encounter first of all. Um, and it's also not very responsible, and it's not a good access point. So for a lot of people, that might be the first time they encounter words of violence against them, or the kind of spelling out of why these violences occurred and the logic from the oppressors. Um, and so, yeah, we're just trying to figure out how to do that in a responsible way.
That's good. Okay. Thanks for that insight. It's nice to have a look at what it is that goes on in that head of yours.
Yeah.
You carry it well with a smile, so that's good. And I understand the trauma that some history does present to people, and it needs to be processed properly before it's being given out.
Yeah. Because, sorry, you're what to say?
Yeah, well, I was thinking of our subject for the talk today because the intro is nice, and it's good that we'd have a chance to think on what's happened in our last week, which is interesting, and it's what makes us smile and get on with the next week that's coming.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk today about parties.
So we get to balance out the chat. So we start with trauma, we go to parties. I like it.
Well, I thought then a bit about it, and a party is not necessarily a boogie woogie. It's just it's a festive activity, which raises your spirits and brings comradeship and fellowship, and these things are sometimes scheduled for certain times of year, New Year's Eve party or calypso, or the carnival that happens in Jamaica was probably my first experience to a party, besides coming out of my room in the morning after my father had a party and taking the peanuts out, the leftover peanuts out of the peanut bowl, and that is a treat for me. And any biscuits or snacks that are left behind after the people went to bed, we as children would just clean up, and that was great. But living on the university campus and having all the Caribbean islands represented there, they had their carnival. And at a very early age, a dear friend of family who lived on campus as a student at the time came over and asked my mother if she'd be kind enough to lend them the pram that was used back in England before we came over, as a prop for their carnival presentation. And the carnival had a thing called last lap, where they'd go around the ring road at the university in a road march on the last day of carnival, and everybody in the costumes. And it was during the time of the missile crisis in Cuba, and the pram was used as a launch pad for the missile, which was made of paper mache and put inside there, and we did a lap of the camp of the ring road. So um,
I mean, sorry, we can't just move past that. So
but
it's a carnival float with a pram with the launch pad for the missile during the Cuban Missile Crisis? Or
well,
no,
just
it's
after,
post, yeah. Yeah, you're not
so
that
it was
old.
there. No, it was probably 67.
Hmm. Oh, so you're
And
talking about when you were a child. This is
yeah, when I was a
happening.
child, and it was my first memory of a carnival of a party because we were able to go out to see our prom
Hmm.
with mommy and daddy. We all went there. Um, and living on campus as a political um, representation or depiction always comes out in carnival. So things that might be difficult to talk or express yourself publicly
Hmm.
in in a government building. Once you put on that costume, you are able to make satire of it and bring it to attention. And
Hmm.
this is what they did. Um, Different costumes over the years, they changed because it's an annual event. And usually, you, I remember picking up like old Roman swords because they dress up as Romans, but make cardboard swords or quite well made stuff.
Hmm.
And we as children, that to be like our we go and scrape up after carnival and we have our own little,
That's always.
toys to play with. Yeah. So that was my real introduction to a party and a carnival atmosphere. Um, the the years that followed on were quite tame. We had nothing really happening. That you know, parties were the birthday party. You know, at 9 years old, mine I got a pair of guns, and there's a picture of me with my plastic gun looking like John Wayne.
See that picture?
At, at around the same time, we had access to quite a bit of land, and daddy got some goalposts made up outside, and at a football party, my friends came on football. That was, celebrating your birthday and comradeship, and it was good.
Hmm.
And and, and as time got on, we moved from the university campus and lived in Hope Pastures where my sister Sandra and my cousin Mary lived at home, and they would love to go to local parties. And for Sandra to find the right party, she'd send me to stand up on the roof and listen out to where the music is coming from. eh? And I'd come back down and say it is over, Margaret Drive side or Charlemont side. And they get dressed and I'd be the chaperone. I'd go along as now at high school. So, I was interested in going to parties, but I don't dance. I just love music, and I'd go with them.
You do
I
dance.
remember, eh?
You do dance.
I do that dances. Now I can accept it. I've grown into it, but at the time I thought it was quite awkward, and I didn't really enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I had my little moves. No, when the rhythm takes you, you have to do something.
Mhm.
Yeah. I went to a party once at call her name, but it's all right. Uh, Sandra's friend's house in Leaks. And when you got to the party, there was a gate man, and the gate man so happened to have been my cousin Kevin, which I didn't really know him because he's a Kingston crowd. I'm now country. He hasn't seen me. He knows Sandra, he knows Mary. He lets them in, and I'm walking by and he holds onto my hand. And I say, Lord, you white, eh? That's my introduction. He said, but go on inside, go help yourself to some food and drinks. So I went in and I said, this is party life wasn't as comfortable as I wanted it to be because it wasn't really my parties. And following there, my sister, my cousin, I was chaperone, basically. And in case of danger, call David or pull David inside as witness. I don't know. But yeah, that went on for a little. Then I decided to have parties of my own. I met up with Roger. And
My Uncle Roger.
Uncle Roger. That's Andrea's husband, my wife's brother.
You're Andrea's husband.
All right. Right, yeah, Uncle Roger. Uncle Roger and I had a party once. And we were quite young, like 19, 20. And we just figured it was time to our party. We had the music already sorted out, and we had the venue, which was your grandfather's house. And we had this party, but the word got around, and this is not Facebook or Twitter or nothing like that. It was just word of mouth, got around. Fortunately, it was a bottle party. Bring a bottle when you come to the party. And people didn't really drink gin, but the mother drank gin, so they'd bring a bottle of gin from the mother's cabinet. Nobody really wanted it. We drink rum and beer, which was short supply. But bring a bottle, we'll let you in. So we thought we'd have probably about 60 people maximum. I think we had over 120. So when it came to, these parties were nice, we gave out food, we cooked, right? So on the buffet line, I was the first person in the line to share the food. And I gave them instructions along the line, follow my tip. If the spoon that's full of rice goes off the edge of the plate and only a bit of rice goes in the plate, that means he's not invited. So don't give him much food. Right? So we're able to feed 120, and at the end of the party, we had liquor left over for another party. Well, a lot of gin, yes, and vodka. So that was like our first venture into it, because we had to have, at that time, we had a gate man to keep track. Like my cousin was a gate man who brought me into that party. We had one out there, and I had to drop him home at the end of the party. And yeah, it was quite eventful because I had an old Land Cruiser which wasn't very reliable, and I think I broke my throttle cable coming back home, and I had to get myself home. But yeah, we made it safely, so that was good. Then Sandra, my sister, she and my cousin Hillary Phillips were very good friends, and Hillary was part of a company called Pulse, who was a promotional company, and they brought shows to Jamaica. So there was a period where I became an usher at these concerts. So I was able to get privileged passes to go and see groups you probably wouldn't hear about, Ray Goodman and Brown, the Manhattans, the Commodores came, yeah. So I was in the know, in the group, which at this moment you got the chance to see people, mingle and be there, but it wasn't really for me, not my kind of scene. We had another party which of note was during this period we had some beer being brought to Jamaica, which wasn't, I mean, everybody in Jamaica drinking Red Stripe, and all of a sudden you come with Coors or Budweiser and try to get in on the market. And it was a bit difficult. So what they would do was have parties where they promote the beer, and you pay one fee at the gate and all your drinks are free. And it's beer, a lot of beer. So went to this party, Skelly Green's house, and it was wonderful, big property, and all the tables were laid out, and everybody came in and sat down, had a drink, and as you had your first beer and started listening to some music, the rain came. It rained. It rained so heavily that the house couldn't hold everybody. People were under the eaves. I was catching on the eave, and the water was running off the roof down my back. And I said, this is stupidness. Let's go back to the table, sit in the rain, and do this thing properly. And we sat there at a table, and we had a wonderful time because you can't drink beer in the rain. You have to drink some rum. So we chased the rum with beer, and it it was quite colorful. A lot of politics was discussed, and it was a memorable night. And yeah, new friends were made, and all stories were told. But that was more or less a synopsis of the youth part of it. Now, later in life, moved to Black River, have a family, and doing sales. And there was a sales stop I had to make in Bull Savannah to Simpson's wholesale. And Mr. Simpson was very appreciative of the fact that we went way out. He's a little isolated wholesaler. But his son used to go to Monroe, and as a Monroe man, he'd buy my stock, which was good. So I always went there. And I had some other people who I had a little influence amongst other salesmen who we shared other customers and shared tips on how to get stuff in, which weren't competing, but were complementing each other's product. And one of them was the salesman for Johnny Walker whiskey. So Mr. Simpson said that he would like to show his appreciation for us in the Christmas period, and he's going to have a party. And the party's theme is lobster and scotch. So we rolled up there in the daylight hours, and there was one guy with a powerful sound system in his car. He opened the trunk, and that was the music. The lobster, it came in trays, just endless amount of food, and scotch, because Johnny Walker appreciated our customers' custom and provided quite a bit of scotch. So it was a very memorable night because we left from there, went in local village. We had another kitty wampus time there, and then head home. So it had all been talk of the town for the next year, Oh, yeah, the lobster and scotch party. And it wasn't very many, it was like, 30 of us.
Mm.
And your Uncle Roger was working in Black River at the time at the bank, and he was staying with us. So when the next year came around, Mr. Simpson said, we're having another party. Please come. I said, oh, sure, I love it, man. So I told Roger, I said, Roger, I have to go to this party. Last year, it was the greatest thing in lobster and scotch. Yeah, he's coming. So we got there in the daylight hours like last time, and there was nothing. There was a big mound of fertilizer with a tarpaulin thrown over it so the weather wouldn't affect it. 3 or 4 cars just chit-chatting, and the sun set in. We had a few drinks, and said, boy, this look like a dud, like it's not going to happen. Mm. Then the truck came in with the sound system and strung up the sound system in the wholesale car park. And then the food caterers came, and it wasn't just lobster and scotch, it was lobster and everything else you wanted, Then the people from Mandeville, who probably never been to that wholesale in their life, heard about the party, so they came. And there were hundreds who came to the party. Right, so the memorable part about the party was that the bags of fertilizer became like a stage. And the girls would be on the bags of fertilizer, dancing, right? I mean, it's covered with tarpaulin, so it don't look like bags, right? But it's like a mountain in the middle of the car park,
yeah.
Right? And it was something special. And Uncle Roger, oh, he realized now what I had told him about the year before.
Mm.
But even I didn't expect it to have mushroomed into that size. And like carnival, like a birthday, it became an annual event. I didn't subscribe to the size that it got to, so I didn't really participate too much after that. But stories will still be told about the Simpsons lobster and scotch party.
That's very cool. I mean, that just is just like a great theme, right? Years later, a lobster and scotch party. I would go to that now.
Yeah, and it was so basic the first year
Mm.
that you didn't really expect anything like what happened the second year. But it's how parties got going because it became an enterprise as well. You know, you have people, I'll call her name Craig Sasser, who's in Kingston with John Solomon's cousin.
Mm.
And he and his group of friends would put on parties that is an initial capital outlay for them, but charging at the gate and getting promotional items to be sold or given away inside there. Encourage massive amount of people. Um, you had one in Ocherios that occurred every year. Um, it, I mean, you're driving 60 odd miles to go to a party in the middle of across the other side of the island. I think a lot of it is to be seen there, you know, and you understand the jet set crowd and the in crowd and trying to be part of that. And when you step back and not trying to be in the crowd itself and see how they react, you realize that probably this is not my kind of party.
Mm.
Hence, I find that my parties now are more, well, it started becoming barbecue or centered around a barbecue, around some music and family and friends, because you also had children coming, so it became family friendly and outdoors type of party. I don't really like being inside the room
Mm.
too much. You know, I'd rather be outside and have choose a nice seating arrangement based on the outside furniture or lack of, you know, to get your conversation going and your comradeship going. Because as I said, it's not about the boogie woogie, you know, it's about the vibe and the festivity of the moment. You know?
Well, I find it funny that so obviously the parties you raised us on were these sorts of everybody sits around, has a drink, talks a lot, there's food and there's background music. Maybe people will burst into song a bit, and maybe there'll be some silly antics with a wheelbarrow that you might light on fire or something. But generally, it's like sit around and talk. And so when I was a teenager and I decided I wanted to have a party, you didn't realize that the parties that you guys had raised me on were that kind of party. And you had like a throwback to thinking that we were going to have a rager in your house. So you got your neighbors to keep an eye on us. And they reported back that it was the most boring party they've ever seen. They were just a bunch of teenagers sat around a table talking.
I was so happy to hear, you know. But it is comradeship, you
Yeah.
know, and the reason to be together. It's nice. You know?
Yeah, I mean, alcohol can make people act stupid, but mostly what you have is, or silly, not necessarily stupid. Like, I'm not going to pass judgment. I drink and will, partake in silliness many times. But mostly what I I've associated it is is that the barriers of the conversation drop, and so you get into more and more meaty chats the more you've been drinking at these like sit around conversation parties. You'll get
Yeah.
into the politics. You'll get into the like solving all the world's problems. My friends always laugh. They know that I've had a little bit too much to drink where I've tried to start a conversation that my brain doesn't have the capacity to keep up with. So I'll be like, let's think about time for a second. I want to I want us to unpack the concept of time. And they're like, no, Rachel, not two bottles in.
No, it's similar to your mother. But on the party scene, you know, there a memorable party recently
Mhm.
was Alfred Morrison, this Michael James friend, had his 70th birthday party in Ochilius, and we were in the island for a few weeks, and we were invited to this party. So we we were ready. We wanted to go. We booked a hotel nearby and did all the responsible things, and went to this party. The man is 70 years old, and he can party, right? And the setting was people coming to celebrate his 70th birthday, and the Congo dance and everything was happening. The liquor was flowing. Um, the the memorable part is at 3 o'clock in the morning. He's sitting on top of a hill, right, on a slope in the garden, and who is left is hardcore party people, and he's looking downhill, right, and I chose a seat looking uphill at him and leaned back, and the seat went over, right, and did a complete
You.
somersault cartwheel. Yeah, it just rolled over back onto my feet like a cat, you know. I think that is when I said I think it's time to go. But he was the party was special, and the second time it has happened to me that people in Jamaica will have a party and to provide entertainment. At his party, he had Ernest Smith singing live, eh, and it was fabulous. And we enjoyed Ernie and his presentation. And Ernie had always been a fan of mine. I'll tell you.
Fan of yours.
Yeah, and me of him, because when Uncle Roger, once again, party animal, used to play at the piano bar in Sandals Orchards, we went to visit him one weekend. And after his work was finished in the bar, we decided to go down the road to a place called the Lions Den, where when we got there, it was like probably 10 of us, you know, come from Kingston to watch him in the bar. When the Lions Den, Ernest Smith was playing live. He had just come back to Jamaica, and his music, we've always had his records and loved his music. And it was very intimate because 10 of us there, and I think probably maximum in the place could have been 20. So we were more than half the crowd. Right? And we were engaging with the band and engaging with him on his music. And, you know, came off stage, and when I met him outside, I said, Ernie, I needed to sing this song for me. And I said, Jack Kingdom Goes to Waste. He said, oh, band members don't know that song. So for the whole night, every time I saw a band member, I say, hey, you know Jack Kingdom? Yeah. So buck up Ernie again. I said, Ernie, everybody know the song. You're not going to play it. He said, no, I can't play that tonight. I was disappointed. Probably 5 years later, right? 5 years later, I am coming home one night in Kingston and stopped by this favorite drinking spot, right? And I ordered Guinness, and the last two people there, right? The owner, who I knew personally, and barmaid, ordered my Guinness. It's 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. In drives a car, and this guy, Gibson, who was a friend of mine and a competitor in sales, we sold the same product. He had a little sideline business, and his business was managing Ernie. And they just come from the recording studio with Ernie and another fellow. Stopped for a beer because, you know, Maca's the bar would be open. And he came out the car with the guitar and sat at the table. And I had my beer there, sat at the same table where I was. I saw Gibbo say, hey, Gibbo, you been everything like that. I said, Ernie. I saw you at Lions Den, you know, and I asked if you play this song for me. He tell me all kind of story. Well, he looked at his friend, you know, with the guitar and says, let's give it to him in the one drop style. And they slapped and played, slapped and strummed that guitar and gave it to me live there. I had no phone, I had no audience, I had nothing to help me record it or remember it other than, and I realized early that this was just for me.
Mm.
And I sucked up every beat of that song and every effort that they put in. And it was probably one of the most memorable musical nights in my life, you know. And I was able to tell him at um at the party where he was playing for
Mm.
Alfred. I said, thank you very much. I remember that night. And he said, yeah, I remember it too. You know, so good. Another by chance happenstance was a party we were invited to in Mandeville from some guys, Wayne Chen. And we heard his wife made the best desserts. She was a serious, you know, cook. She could make pies and cakes and stuff that you want to dream about being in Jamaica, you know. So they say, yeah, we're going to this party, Christmas party. And we went to the house and we were with Uncle Paul and Debbie, who brought us in. And the party was massive, hundreds of people. And then somebody gets on the microphone and asks, you know, please welcome Toots and the Maytals. This man also, as his side job, was manager for Toots.
Everybody's side job.
His side, no definite the man had a supermarket chain, but his side job was his music and Toots. And Toots performed live at the poolside, right? And that was also quite memorable. I've always liked Toots. I went to see him at the World Music Festival, which was probably 1980 something, which was a venue that they wanted to create in Montego Bay to bring entertainment tourism to the country. So I think it was called Bob Marley Entertainment Complex. And they started with this World Music Festival, which was over 4 days. And the night I went had Melody Makers, Toots, and the Maytals, Clash, and the Grateful Dead.
I know.
I wasn't a deadhead, so I didn't understand what they were on about. Right? I'll tell you the truth. However, the drummer's setup in a dome of drums blew my mind. Eh? And I took Uncle Robert with me. It was his little sojourn into live music, you know, he was like a sidekick. And it was a memorable night. I remember Toots being a leather jacket and it was hot. And him taking it off and using it like a real showman, Michael Jackson type, swirl it around, throw it here, you know. And his performance was great, you know. So to see him again live at the poolside party, close up, was good. And his soul rest in peace. He's always been a good fellow. He's been a good musician, you know. Yeah, so the party life was varied, and I participated in different at different levels, from organizing just to be an uninvited guest at some, you know, and a privileged guest at others. But yeah, it's been good.
Mm-hmm. It does sound colorful, and I like how you've structured the story with the different phases of parties and different versions of you know, of what it could be like to celebrate together. Um, I didn't expect you to start with carnival, because that's not like, to me that's a big party, right? That's not an introduction to a party. That's a big one. But it was a nice transition because we were talking about this idea of like dealing with difficult history, and you then brought in satire, which is a really great way, and a really Jamaican way to deal with things are complicated and difficult, and to make it into take some serious make joke. And yeah, the music ones. Every time you used to tell me any of these stories about just like randomly these like amazing musicians that you know value just turning up and you having these beautiful experiences with them. That was the reason I wanted to hear about the party stories.
I had one more for you.
Yeah.
Right? So, being a salesman on this North Coast, used to have my lunch at the place called Cosmos. Cosmo, after Hurricane Gilbert, was the first bar open back on the beach. And the salesmen in my group of guys who you know moved quite close, we petitioned him to get a credit card machine so we could put company expenses on the card so we could eat there and we could entertain there, and it became our headquarters kind of. It was very local. Thatch hut, wooden bench, right by the sea, and the view from the dining area was uninterrupted, bigger than the biggest screen TV, HD, K4, whatever you want. It was looking straight out to the sea. And as salesmen, we could tell the vibe of what's happening in the town, in the tourist town, by the amount of activity on the beach and what type of activity was happening. So it was always my go-to spot for lunch. I would sit there and have a nice heated conch and chips, which was great. And having lunch one day and have the place to myself. This dining room probably could seat 40, but it's a little early for meals, and I'm sitting there with my back to the end of looking out on the beach. In walks Lionel Richie. Yeah, by himself, no minders or nothing. And he sits at the table in front of me. Eh? I nod to him, and he nods to me, and I'm eating my food and saying to myself, this man is so lucky. He gets to see the best view in Jamaica. Not interfering with him. I'm cool. Right? So, eating my food, and two girls walk past and look down into the dining room and see Lionel. And take a second take and say, hey, it's Lionel. And run over to him. Lionel, can I get a picture with you? And I said to myself, look how the man was just about to eat his food. Enjoy the same view I'm viewing. And because of his celebrity status, it's all spoiled, And that was a moment where I realized that, it's not a bed of roses for them. They can't just be able to enjoy the small and nicer things. They always have to be trying to put barriers and protection around themselves to get places. That's why they have VIP areas where you can't afford to go, I suppose. But those aren't necessarily the nicest places to be. Once again, looking from the outside is always different than from being in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting because I guess for some people as well, because Lionel's an American celebrity. A lot of the other ones you're talking about are were Jamaican. All of the other ones you're talking about were Jamaican. So I can imagine that there would be potentially an ideal of escaping your normal life or your need for that general kind of protection, going somewhere like Jamaica, which is small compared to America. It's not, you not necessarily know how much you're going to be recognized. Yeah, it's like when like that could be perceived as creating the barriers he needed for his privacy. But even then it's still hard to achieve.
American tourists were there, that's probably.
Yeah. Need to go reel back a bush.
Well, the celebrity culture is not one that Jamaica endorses. I mean, there was a video recently of Usain Bolt walking across the stadium and on the stadium field, all the crowd, 30,000 people around him, and there are no minders. And a friend from England says, so where's his minders? I said, all 30,000 are his minders. Nobody need to get closer to him. We can see him when we want to see him, and he goes in the shop. It's not like
Yeah,
It could be
that's
true.
inconsistent though. They're definitely like celebrities in Jamaica or like and people or foreign celebrities coming to Jamaica that get reached out to and
Oh,
grabbed
yeah.
and touched and
Mhm.
stuff.
I sat beside Sean Paul at the airport in the
Mhm.
lounge. Yeah. And yeah, so Sean Paul could hear him talking. A little youth came up, with a guitar
Mhm.
and asked for a picture with him. And I saw that youth singing while he was in the line trying to check out to get on the airplane. And he has ambitions to be a musician. And it was good to see the interaction because sometimes they do need to have a chance to get close to your idols or your celebrity that you endorse, I
Yeah.
mean, if Valentino Rossi came in the room, I might have a difficulty not to go and ask him for a picture or shake his hand.
You wouldn't be so calm.
No, I
It
probably
wouldn't just
wouldn't.
be like a head nod to Valentino. You'd be like,
See my
"Mhm."
46 here.
Just like,
Hey,
sorry, I'm
what?
I'm completely wearing all of your name and number.
And sure enough, it does happen. So yeah, I can see both sides of it.
Yeah, I mean, I find it happens to me all the time. I don't think that I'm necessarily someone who
Well,
likes
people think
celebrities.
you're a celebrity.
Hmm?
You are a celebrity.
I'm not a celebrity. I'm
No,
saying
it
that
doesn't
I
happen to you
didn't
all the time.
no, I thought that I would be the person that would be really chill around celebrities. And
Right.
then I have encountered ones that I don't even care about. But because I know they're famous, I get really like anxious in my body and then like start acting really weird. So I can see how some of that is almost yeah, physical response to power, I guess actually. Like when someone is really famous, there's also a serious sense of power that they hold, power of being recognized, power to, I don't know, influence you.
That's the word. Yeah. Oh,
So
friends.
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Cool. Well, I really enjoyed the stories. I don't have any suggestions for the next one. Do you have series that you want to, any themes you want to talk about next time?
Um, I wouldn't want to preempt it from now, but
Okay.
there are pages.
Their pages. It's your
There
little
are pages.
storybook.
Yeah, it was. We started this because there are things that happen or I've experienced in my life early on that I find that I would forget. So I did write a few down,
Mhm.
just headlines, and it's being able to fill the meeting while talking to you is nice.
Yeah,
I would look straight and see. I mean, each and every one I'm comfortable with. Right, so we'll find a nice one and work with that.
definitely. Uh, and maybe we'll get some requests. The Monroe stories were a request, and the parties was my request. So,
Okay, cool.
all right, Dad, it has been lovely as always, and
So
I'll catch you with the next one. Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast, and we'll keep them coming. We're really enjoying the process. All right,
thank you for talking, taking time, and listening. Thanks.
thank
Bye.
you. Bye.